Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video, and we're finally back with more Survivor 40 coverage. So obviously I did do a cast reaction when the cast was initially leaked back in May. I also did a cast assessment immediately after that. Then I did a couple update videos talking about the new information that was coming out, like the format changes, the tribe divisions, all that stuff. But here we are, we're finally in the preseason. It's really weird that we're finally here. It's so weird that we're weeks away from Survivor 40 premiering. But with all the pregame stuff finally out, with all the bios and the cast interviews, I decided, you know what? Let's do another video about the cast here. And I was initially going to do another cast assessment. However, I just felt like that felt very redundant. Obviously, I already did one 8 months ago now. But I decided what I'm going to do here to change it up a little bit. We're going to do preseason power rankings. So essentially, I'll be going through every member of the cast and ranking them in the order of how likely I think it is that they're going to win the game. Again, this is not a boot list. I'm not expecting the boot list to go this way at all, actually. Because I think a lot of the people that are probably towards the middle of my list are more than likely the first boots. I do think some of the people towards the bottom of the list might actually survive a few rounds. So, again, this is not a boot list at all. This is merely ranked on who I think has a better shot of winning the game. But also, through this, I'll also talk about my updated thoughts on these people since my last cast assessment video. So that out of the way, let's jump into it with number 20. So number 20, the person who I think has the worst chance of winning the game, of winning Winners at War, is Sandra. I mean, I think this is pretty clear. I mean, I actually was not going to put Sandra at the bottom. I mean, she was going to be like 18 or 19 until I listened to the pregame interviews. And the fact that Sandra was mentioned by almost every single interview and talking about how they wanted to dethrone her, how they wanted to vote her, be the one that voted her out. I mean, come on. Sandra's not winning this game. I mean, that was very clear to begin with. However, I did think that obviously if she gets to the end, if she's at Final Tribal, I think she wins the game no matter what. I think there's no way that jury would not reward Sandra for getting to the end of the game with this massive of a target on her back. Now, there is Edge of Extinction, obviously. So, I mean, even if she does get voted out early, she could go, the Edge of Extinction, come back. But, I mean, come on, she's not coming back from Edge of Extinction. But again, I don't think she's the first boot. I will say that. I think there's almost no chance that Sandra's the first person voted. I'll be very, very surprised because the way that I see this game playing out after these interviews is I see the massive threats sticking together for the first couple rounds. I do feel like the first couple boots will probably end up being some lesser threats. But I think by the time of probably like the first swap or so, I think that's going to be a time where these massive targets start to fall. And I think Sandra might be the first one of those. There's just so many people that were talking about Sandra and getting rid of her that I just feel like it's very tough to put her anywhere but here at the bottom. For me, I thought the saving grace for Sandra was going to be her relationship with Boston Rob, and through that relationships with people like Tyson and Jeremy and Kim and all that stuff. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. I mean, the fact that Boston Rob told Amber to watch out for Sandra, I think that's a massive sign that Sandra is 100% poised to do very poorly in this game. Even though I do think she might come out playing a more aggressive game, I would actually be surprised if she didn't. I feel like that's kind of how she needs to play this season, is play pretty much the way she did in Game Changers, if not even harder than that. But no matter what, again, she has no chance of winning this game, and really no chance of getting towards the end of the game. So for me, I ranked here at number 20. Number 19, the second least likely winner of this season, in my opinion, is the person I was going to put at the bottom before these interviews and before I realized Sandra was such a threat, and that person is Amber. I know some people might disagree with this opinion, but for me, I just feel like Amber has so many negatives. Obviously, the massive issue with Amber is her connection to Boston Rob. I'll be very surprised if this cast allows both of them to be in the game for too long. Again, I don't know if Amber's I mean, I could see Amber being the first boot. I don't know if that's really going to be the case, though, but I just don't see her making it even to the, like, swap. I mean, unless the swap's after her second tribal council, which is a likelihood, so I guess she could make the swap. But either way, like, I don't see her making the merge. I feel like Boston Rob might be kept around for a little while as people's meat shields. I mean, Jeremy has talked about that. I'm sure Tyson is thinking that. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that keeping Boston Rob in the game keeps a meat shield for them moving forward in the game. However, I feel like Amber gets the threat level of Boston Rob without getting the aspect of people wanting to keep her for that target. Like, I just feel like there's no reason to keep Amber in this game. So because I actually think Amber's going to be booted before Boston Rob. And even if that isn't the case, even if she does survive past Boston Rob, there's Edge of Extinction. And with Edge of Extinction, there's always the risk of Boss Rob coming back into the game. And if he does, then you have both Boss Rob and Amber in the game, especially if she gets dragged all the way to the end of the game. I mean, if you're at the final 5 with Amber and Boss Rob comes back, you're at the final 6 with both Boss Rob and Amber. That's a scenario that really no one wants to be in. And that's a scenario also where with some idols and immunity challenges, they can get to the end of the game. They can get to that fire making challenge. So really, again, I just see no reason why Amber is going to make it anywhere close to the end of the game. And another reason why initially I was going to put her at the very bottom is also because I just don't feel like she can win the game. I feel like she's someone that would have to really radically change up her game to gather the respect needed to win this all-winner season of Survivor. I mean, this is a season that is essentially going to crown who is the best player of all time. I mean, not really, but at least that's the way that people are perceiving it. And I feel like with that, this jury is going to reward a person that they feel like is worthy of getting that title. And I don't feel like anyone is thinking Amber is that person. So for Amber to become that person, I feel like she needs to radically change her game. And that's not the sense that I'm getting from her. I feel like she's just going to play the same game. So even if she does get to the end of the game, I feel like there's no way that the jury's going to reward her with the win. So for all those reasons, I have Amber here at number 19. Now at number 18, we have Boston Rob. I mean, come on. Boston Rob's not winning this game either. The only reason I have him above Amber is because I do think there is a chance that he can win the Edge of Extinction battle and then come back into the game at obviously final 6, maybe find an idol, maybe win immunity challenge, get the fire making, win that, get to the end of the game, win solely based on his threat level. Do I think that's even likely? Not really. But I do think Boss Rob is someone that if he gets to the end of the game, no matter how he gets there, I feel like he has a shot to win. And I feel like if he gets there without Edge of Extinction, he is a shoo-in to win. The question is, does he get there? Again, I don't think so. I don't think he will be able to get this target off his back. I mean, I would be very surprised if he doesn't make it late pre-merge. I don't think he's the type of person that gets booted right away. I think people are going to want to keep him around as a meat shield. But I think there's no way he gets past the early merge. Obviously, if he gets to the merge, he's going to be a massive target there. He's the biggest target that is also somewhat of a physical threat. And I feel like also with his like domineering personality, there's no way that he's not a target come the merge. I feel like that's kind of the point where people are going to start to let go of him, going to realize that they don't need him as a meat shield anymore. So I do think that's the point where he probably ends up going home. But again, if he's able to somehow make it through that, make it to the very end of the game, I think he wins the jury vote hands down. And that's the only reason why he is above Amber and also above Sandra. I mean, I do think it's more likely that he gets further into the game than Sandra, and I also think that there's more of a chance that he wins the game over someone like an Amber. I actually do like his mindset, though, coming into this season. Again, from his interview, it talked about how he wants to align with all these big threats, that's his plan, aligning with like a Parvati and a Youll, and I feel like that's the right strategy for him. But again, is it going to work out for him? I don't think so, because to be honest, I don't think anything would work out for him on this season. So again, here at number 18. And number 17 is someone I had ranked way higher before these interviews, and I mean, something about her interviews really put me off, and that is Sarah Lacina. I actually made a list before I read the bios and listened to the interviews. Initially, Sarah was number 6. And for her to drop all the way down to 17 really tells you something. I feel like Sarah came off so cocky in her interview with ET Canada that really just put me off. She kept on talking about how she's already the best of all time because she's voted out Sandra, which, again, like, everyone's been saying, oh, Sandra's the best player of all time because she won twice. I feel like that's very faulty logic. But for Sarah to come in here and say, oh, I'm the best of all time because I voted out Sandra, who's won twice, it's like, that's even faultier logic. Sarah, I think, played a very dominant game, a very strong game in Game Changers. I think she is one of the best winners of all time. But I think considering that she's coming into this season with such an ego, is definitely going to be a downside for her. I think also I was very surprised at how many people were looking at her as a threat. Just how many people mentioned Sarah during their pregame interviews. I was actually kind of surprised. I was not expecting that. I mean, obviously I knew she was going to have some threat. Obviously she just came off playing Game Changers not too long ago, and was openly shown to have played a very aggressive game. So again, it's not surprising that she has a target on her back, but I was surprised at how big that target was. I mean, she was probably mentioned more than like Tony or even a Parvati. Like, I was actually very surprised by it. And because of that, I just feel like her threat level, along with her ego, I feel like that's going to be pretty much the death sentence for her. I don't feel like she's going to do well at all. I could be wrong. She could make the merge and then through that make her way towards the end. But I just feel like she's going to be a pre-merge boot. I feel like she's kind of this massive target that isn't really a meat shield. And I feel like because of that, she's kind of primed to be taken out in the first few rounds. So I have her ranked here at number 17. Now, number 16 is another winner that I did have her ranked a little bit higher before the interviews. But after the interviews, dropped her down a little bit. And that is Danni Boatwright. And this is the thing about Danni Boatwright. I think she's making the merge. I mean, like, it's not like I'm thinking she's going home early. I absolutely do not think that. I would be surprised if she goes home pre-merge, especially early pre-merge. And even then, I wouldn't be that surprised if she makes the final 3. I just feel like she has no chance of winning the game, even if that does happen. I think after listening to her interviews and listening to her talk about the game, I don't really get the sense that she's going to play, again, an aggressive sort of game, a game that this cast would want to reward as the winner of the 40th season, the all-winner season of the show. I think mixing that in with her having almost no reputation coming into this season, her having no relationships coming into this season, I just see no reason why a jury would reward her with the win. That, and also I feel like she is one of the bigger physical threats out of the women. I feel like that could also create a target for her come into the merge. Though I think as long as Kim is there, I think Kim's going to be a bigger target than her, but we'll see. I mean, overall, I'm not feeling great about Danni just because, again, even if she does make it far, I'm not thinking she has a chance of winning. And the sense that I got from her interviews is that she's not really prepared for the strategic game of the season. I mean, she talked about how she needed to go out and find idols and do some blind sides and stuff, but I mean, pretty much everyone was talking about that. Like, I get the sense that she hasn't really been keeping up with the show. I don't get the sense that she's really been doing her research on the show. Obviously, she did mention War Dog in her interview, but then again, Edge of Extinction was the last season to air before they left, so I don't think that's really too surprising that she watched the latest season. And she even mentioned in her bio that she's been watching on and off and watching like whenever she can, which again screams out to me that she hasn't watched that much. So again, I'm not really expecting Danni to do well. I could be completely off on it. I mean, that's the point of these videos. I could be completely off and look like an idiot a few months later, and I have in almost every one of these videos I've done in the past. But for now, I'm not feeling good about Danni. She's here at number 16. Now at number 15, I have Ben Driebergen. And obviously, a lot of people hate Ben because of the way he won the game, 3 idols in a row, then got lucky with the fire-making challenge. I mean, with Ben, he came into Heroes vs. Hustlers as the biggest threat on that season, as the person who was looked at as the front runner to win. At Winners at War here, he's not really that. So I do feel like there is a chance that he's able to adapt. However, I do think he's going to have some target on his back. To be honest, I was surprised at how little Ben was mentioned in the interviews. Actually, I don't think anyone mentioned Ben. And I was actually expecting people to mention how Ben obviously idled his way to the end of the game and through that would be a target earlier on. That's kind of the way I was thinking about it, but no one actually mentioned that. So to be honest, Ben did move up in my estimations after these interviews because, again, no one seems to be targeting him. And to be fair, now I'm thinking about it a bit more. Maybe Ben should be a bit higher on the list. But I do feel like Ben's going to have a tough time winning the game, though. Again, I don't see him making it deep into the game. I feel like he's someone that people are going to figure out by the time of the merge. And he's probably going to run into similar issues that he did in Heroes vs. Hustlers. And I feel like with so many more gamers out here now, he's not going to be able to find idols as consistently as he did previously. And I feel like because of that, Ben is probably not in it for the long run. But I thought Ben's interviews were fine. Again, he talked a lot about his social game and how he wanted to improve his social game to be able to have people that want to take him to the end. And again, it's good that he's thinking that way. It's good that he wants to do that. I just don't think it's going to work out for him. I mean, I do think he could build a bond like very early on of like someone like a Wendell or Nick or some of these newer players, I'm kind of thinking. But again, I just feel like he's going to get cut. Like, I feel like there's no way that they're actually going to take him to the end unless he's that big of a GOAT. And if he is that big of a GOAT, then he's a GOAT. So it's like, I mean, either way, like, I don't see Ben winning this game. I just feel like it's so unlikely. He's here at number 15. Now at number 14, I think this might be a little bit of a controversial opinion. I think a lot of people think this person's going to be the first boot. I 100% do not think that's the case. And that is Tony. Which, by the way, I mean, obviously I have a bias here. I mean, I am a massive Tony fan. Tony's probably my favorite character in the history of Survivor. But I'm actually feeling decent about Tony after these interviews. To be honest, I was feeling obviously terrible about Tony when the cast was initially released, as everyone was. However, I think over time, I kind of thought about more and more, and I kind of like slowly got higher on Tony, up to the point now where I'm actually feeling all right about Tony. I feel like Tony's going to make it through these first few rounds. And I feel like once he gets through his first few rounds, as long as he doesn't like become Tony and do the same thing he did the last 2 seasons, I feel like he could make the merge. And once he makes it to the merge, I feel like he's home free. I feel like he just needs to get there. Because the thing about Tony that I think people seem to forget is that Tony was actually very good at building relationships on his initial season. Again, he built that relationship with Wu, with Trish, with Spencer even, with LJ, with Sarah. I mean, he had good relationships that brought him towards that endgame. I mean, the thing that really impressed me about Tony is he talked about how he has learned from his previous 2 seasons, how he learned that his first win was kind of a thing that is very tough to repeat. And he tried to repeat it, obviously, of Game Changers, and that completely failed on him. So he said that he's going to try a different approach this time. And obviously, the biggest problem for Tony is, are people going to let him take that new approach? And I feel like they are. Again, I feel like, based on the way the cast is talking, the big threats are going to align at the beginning. And I feel like that's such a great position for Tony. That, and also, I feel like Tony wasn't brought up as much as like Boston Rob or Sandra. And I feel like because of that, I think his threat level is a bit lower than I was expecting. And the thing I also found funny is that the people that did bring him up brought him up kind of like a joke. I mean, I remember like Jeremy and Wendell were both talking about Tony like he was someone that they need to like play up to his ego, and like they would build spy shacks with him and everything. I feel like Tony isn't going to be taken seriously this season. I feel like that's such a great spot for Tony, especially with his new mindset on the game, where he's talked about how he needs to like stop doing that sort of stuff, where he needs to be more relaxed. Again, he still does have that threat level. I mean, he is still Tony. He's Tony. He is someone that is very sporadic and could completely change his game plan when the season starts. So, I mean, really, I can't put him that high. I mean, I would have loved to put him in like the top tier here, because I do think his interviews and everything were the quality of that. However, I just feel like his threat level is so big. And with like, obviously, the previous stuff that we've seen from Tony, I don't know if he'll be able to keep it in the entire way through. So I couldn't put him too high, but I do have him here at number 14. Now, number 13 is kind of a person I didn't really know what to do with. I mean, he was much lower on my initial list, but I bumped him up a bit after the interviews because I did think he did a pretty good job, and that is Adam Klein. I don't feel great about Adam. I never did, even when the season was announced. I don't feel great about him now. I mean, I do think he did well in his interviews. I've just always had the same problem with Adam, and again, this is just my perception of Adam. I just feel like he just seems so schemy. I mean, whenever I see Adam, I just think he's up to something. And the thing is, I think he's a genuinely nice guy. I just feel like everything to me comes off as fake. Like, he just feels like a fake person, even though he isn't. And that's just my perception of things, but I do feel like that is something that could come up. The fact that he was going to all these like poker events and all these charity events before the season and building bonds with certain winners, I feel like that could be looked at as fake at this point. And I feel like those bonds aren't really going to hold much merit coming into this actual season. That being said, I do think he has the right mindset coming into this season. I do think he is someone that has some natural game ability to do well on this season. I just don't really feel confident about Adam really ever. That being said, I don't think he has no shot at winning the game. Again, I think if he makes it to the end of the game, I think he is someone that could garner the respect of the jury. I do think he is someone that could play aggressive enough. Again, it would be determined on who he's up against. I don't think he wins against everybody just naturally. Like, I think if he's up against a Tony or a Parvati or Boss Rob or Sandra, I think he instantly loses. I think if he's up against even like a Youll or a Tyson or any of these people, I think he loses. I think he needs to be against certain people. And obviously that was his game in Millennials vs. Gen X, where he needed to be up against Ken and Hannah, and he got that. So again, like, I don't think he has no shot at winning the game. I just don't feel great about him as a whole. He's here at number 13. Now, number 12, we're starting this like batch of winners here. Actually, there's actually 3 winners in a row who are all female winners that I do think have a lot of skill for the game, but I do think because of that they might be targeted earlier on. And at number 12 here, I actually have the most threatening of those 3. So I have Natalie Anderson, and I love Natalie. I mean, Natalie is one of my favorite winners. I love the way that she played the end game in San Juan del Sur. However, I'm not feeling great about her. To be honest, I'm feeling very bad about Natalie after her interviews and all that. I just feel like she is coming into this season with at least some target. I do think people look at her as an aggressive player and a very strong player. She was mentioned a few times by some of the other female winners. And if you don't know, they were actually sequestered before the game started, where all the women were together and all the men were together. So all the men didn't know any of the women that were in the game. Women didn't know any of the men that were in the game. So usually, like, all the women were talking about the other women, the men were talking about the other men. And with Natalie Anderson, again, she was mentioned by a couple other people. I know Sophie was someone that mentioned her. However, I don't think that's the issue with Natalie. I feel like the issue with Natalie is that she's coming into this season with a threat level, but also isn't big enough to be a meat shield. I think that's a terrible spot. I mean, I think coming into this season, again, I feel like a lot of these massive threats are going to come together. The Boss Robs, the Parvati's, the Jeremys, all these other people. And obviously, we do know, obviously, Natalie has a connection with Jeremy, and that might save her here. But I do feel like Natalie just naturally could be someone that would be left out of that grouping and could be targeted as the most threatening non-threat, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like she is the type of person that would be booted first or second on this season. I feel like that's not a great spot for her. And even if she does make it further into the game, she was also mentioned as a physical threat. I don't feel like that's great. I'm just really not feeling good about Natalie, and it sucks because I really like Natalie. But I just feel like she's going to have a tough road on this season. However, I mean, like, obviously I left room for me being wrong. She's here at number 12. I mean, I do think that there's a chance. Again, if she makes it to the merge, I feel like she got a good run. I mean, that was her best part of her game last time. I feel like she could do a similar thing again. And if she gets to the end of the game with the right people, I do think she can win the game. But I do feel like her threat level is in the complete wrong spot, where she's not too big of a threat to be kept around as a meat shield, but not a non-threat either. So I do feel like she's going to be targeted. I have her here at number 12. Now at number 11, I have another winner that I'm thinking of very similar to Natalie, just not as big of a threat, and that is Sophie Clark. I feel like almost the exact same thing, but just not as threatening, and I think because that there's more of a chance of her slipping by and actually getting to the end of the game and possibly winning depending on who she's up against. I do feel like it's tougher for Sophie to win, though. I mean, I feel like Sophie is someone that would need to play more aggressively to get the respect of the jury. I do think she can do it. I think even more so after listening to the interviews, I felt more confident about Sophie than I was before. However, at the end of the day, Sophie is probably the most introverted person on this cast. She is someone that is kind of cold at points, and I feel like that was something that almost lost her the game her first time, and I feel like this time that could be a death sentence for her. I mean, I do feel like she's going to have a tough time connecting with people in general. I do think there are specific people that I could see her building a great relationship with. I mean, like a Youll, even a Wendell, Adam. I mean, a lot of people. But it's like, really, I just feel like she is not the type of player that is going to win this season. I could be completely off on that. I feel like she's the type of person that could be an early boot. I do think Sophie is coming into this with almost no target on her back, though, which is, again, better sign for her than it is for, like, Natalie. But I do feel like she's someone that is very strategic, someone that's very intelligent, and I feel like she comes across as very intelligent, and I feel like that could be a bad sign for her early in the game and cause her to be an early boot. But again, I do feel like she has a chance of winning. I feel like she could gather the respect of the jury. So I have her here at number 11. Now, number 10, I have the final winner of this batch of winners that, again, I don't have a massive target on their back, but I feel like because of that they could be targeted, but if they make it far, they could win. It's Denise. Again, I feel like a lot of people are very high on Denise. I'm not as high. I've never been as high on Denise. I don't think her Philippines game is that impressive. I feel like she made a lot of flaws that people don't really talk about. And also there's this misconception that she wins against Malcolm because of the reunion show and stuff. And I feel like people overrate her game because of that. Again, I don't think Denise is that great of a winner, but I do think she's a very strong player. I feel like she is someone that could adapt to really any scenario that's thrown at her. However, again, I do feel like she has a possibility of being an early boot. I do think she is someone that, again, is strategic and savvy enough to be looked at as like a minor threat, but not someone threatening enough to be a meat shield. I feel like that's a bad spot. I don't think she's going to be included in this like massive threat alliance that might come together earlier on. However, I do think she is someone that just naturally can win the game. I do think she is someone that naturally can gather respect from a jury. And because that, I do think if she gets to the end of the game, I do think she could get the respect needed to win, but I could also see her being a GOAT. And I didn't know what to really feel after her interviews. I mean, her interviews just kind of came off as like she's just going to do the same thing and just see what happens. And I don't know. I'm not feeling great about Denise, but I'm not feeling terrible about Denise either. Because again, I don't feel like she has the threat level coming into this as a Natalie Anderson, but I also feel like she's more likely to gather respect than someone like a Sophie. So that's why I have her here at number 10 above those other two winners. But really, at the end of the day, I'm still not feeling great about Denise. Now at number 9, this might be a controversial opinion because this person's much higher than probably what most people would put, but I mean, I'm feeling pretty confident about her, and that's Parvati Shallow. I'm very surprised I am, actually. To be honest, I came into this thinking Parvati was going to be towards the bottom, like at 16 or 17. Probably actually right above where Tony is, but I think after listening to the interviews and talking about other people talk about Parvati, I'm feeling very good about her. I mean, I feel like no one is actually coming after Parvati. Like, no one actually mentioned Parvati as a target. If anything, there were actually people that were talking about aligning with Parvati. I mean, even Boston Rob was talking about how he needs to build an alliance with Parvati. I feel like Parvati's also grown up to the point where I feel like she's going to get along with a lot of people like a Kim and a Danni and a Sarah and a Denise and all these people. I feel like she isn't the same person that she was back then, back during like Micronesia and Heroes vs. Villains, where she was targeted right from the get-go. There's just bigger targets in this season somehow in Sandra and Boss Rob. I feel like those are going to be the two main targets earlier on, but I do feel like she's also a big enough threat to be part of that threat alliance. I feel like she's someone that's big enough to where people will think of her as a meat shield, and through that want to take her further into the game. I also feel like based off her interviews, I got a very good vibe off her. I mean, that's just Parvati in general, though. I think Parvati is just so charismatic with the way she talks. I feel like, obviously, that's going to help her in the game as well. I'm feeling very good about Parvati coming into the season. But at the end of the day, she still does have that threat level. I mean, she is still a threat in the game. And because that, she could be targeted like mid-merge or so and be taken out there. But I'm actually feeling very good about a deep run for Parvati, so I have her here at number 9. And number 8 is someone that I didn't know what to do with. Like, I really didn't. And that is Ethan Zahn. Obviously, the earliest winner that's on this cast. And yeah, I mean, I was actually coming into this expecting him to talk about how much he's going to change his game. And he did to a degree. He talked about how he wants to find idols and blindside people, blah, blah, blah. But I was actually expecting more. I was expecting him to come in like full villain, but that really wasn't really what was happening. I mean, instead, he just seems like he's going to do the same thing, but with idols and blindsides. And while that's cool, it doesn't make me as confident on him as I was hoping I was going to be. His interviews didn't really instill any confidence in me. I mean, I don't feel like he is going to win this season. I do think he is someone that, I think there's a chance, like, again, if he goes full villain, if he goes all out, I feel like he is someone that could get to the end of the game and get the respect and win the game. However, I feel like he's going to have to earn that, and I don't feel like by the way he's talking that he is going to be the type of person that does earn that. The way I'm kind of seeing Ethan right now is I'm kind of seeing him as a Jervis. I'm kind of seeing him as someone that returns to the game, kind of becomes the sidekick of someone that does dominate the game, and could make it to the end of the game, but then doesn't win a jury vote. That's kind of the way I'm seeing Ethan's game right now. However, again, I don't see any reason to get rid of Ethan early. I mean, I would be very, very surprised if Ethan doesn't make like mid-merge. As again, I feel like there's no reason to get rid of him. And once he gets there, I feel like it's very easy for him to get to the end of the game. And if he gets to the end of the game, he could possibly win. But I just feel like his likelihood of winning there isn't as high as some other people will be talking about. But I am really excited to see him play. To be honest, even more so than when the cast was originally leaked. I mean, I think there I was like, okay, that's cool to see Ethan back, but it's like, I'd rather see Hatcher, I'd rather see like Tina and all these other people. But it's like, I think in retrospect, I actually am really, really excited to see Ethan play. Probably more so than almost anyone else on this cast. I mean, outside of probably like a Tony, I think Ethan's probably the one I'm the most excited to see play again. So at least there's that. But again, not feeling great about his winner chances, but I do think it's very likely he gets towards the end game, though, so he's here at number 8. At number 7 is a very similar person to Ethan in my eyes. I think it's someone that's a shoo-in to make a deep run, possibly even Final 3. I just feel like almost no chance she wins, and that is Michelle Fitzgerald. I think Michelle's coming into this season with no threat at all, but it's also not going to be looked at as someone with some strategic acumen either. I feel like she's like kind of the perfect non-threat for this season. I feel like there's no chance she gets taken out before the merge. And I feel like once she gets to the merge, I could see her getting all the way to the end. Now, I was actually expecting Michelle to be a lot more aggressive in the way she's going to approach this game. From the way that she was talking in her interviews, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It feels like she's just going to play kind of the same game again, which, I mean, is fine, I guess. But it's like, I don't feel like that's the type of game that gets the respect of a all-winner jury. Again, that's the way I'm really thinking about this season, is that these people are going to want to reward a person with the title as the best player ever, essentially. Like, as the best of all the winners. And I feel like that's something that, like, are they really going to give to Michelle? I don't think so. Like, unless Michelle were to do something really big, and by the way she's talking, it doesn't sound like she's going to. However, again, I think, like, if I were to bank on one person making it to the final 3, I would bank it on Michelle. I think Michelle is like the perfect person to take to the end on a season like this. So because, again, I could see her making a very, very deep run. It's just, I don't feel like she wins at the end. But again, her making a deep run in most scenarios is already better than a lot of these other people that can win, probably more so than Michelle, but are very unlikely to even get there. So again, for me, Michelle is here at number 7. Now at number 6 is a winner that I was super high on in my cast assessment video. I've really dropped on him, and then I kind of went back up a bit on him, and then I listened to the interviews and I dropped a little bit on him again, and that is Wendell Holland. Wendell was actually my second pick on my cast assessment. I mean, he wasn't my winner pick, but he was this other person I was considering. And I think since then, I kind of realized, like, well, Wendell's not really in the in-group on this season. I mean, there's a lot of people that have connections, like Rob, Jeremy, Tyson, Sandra, Kim, even a Parvati. I mean, there's like even a Tony, really. I mean, there's a lot of people here that have connections. I feel like Wendell doesn't have that just because he's so new. And also something else I realized, that he's also one of the bigger physical threats on this season. I feel like that's a bad sign for him. I feel like he's also someone that has a legacy coming into this season as the one that dominated the game along with Dominic. And again, they just recently saw Ghost Island about a year before this season was filming. So it's like, I do feel like those are massive knocks against him. However, I do think naturally Wendell is just a great Survivor player. I think he's someone that's so naturally inclined to do well in the game. With him having a strategic mind, with him being very good socially, with him being good physically, I think he's just a very good all-around player. And that's the main reason why he's still here at number 6. I mean, again, I did listen to his interviews. I feel like he is coming off pretty cocky in those, but I do think he justifies his cockiness within it. I mean, he's not like Sarah, where Sarah is just like saying, I'm the best ever. Like, Wendell is more so like detailing what he's going to do, talking about how, oh, I'm going to get Jeremy, take him to the merge, and then cut him. Oh, he's talking about how Boston Rob, I'll keep him around for a few votes and then cut him. I mean, like, he's talking about each of these players and talking about how he's going to deal with them. And I feel like Wendell's the type of person that's able to placate other people's egos. But again, I just feel like he is coming to this with more of a threat than he's expecting. I don't think he's expecting himself to be targeted at all, and I feel like it will be the case. The question is, can he survive that? And after that, obviously make a deep run. We'll see. To be honest, I'm not really feeling it anymore. I do think if he gets to the end, I do think he has a chance of winning. I do think he is a winner that has respect and can gather even more respect throughout the course of the season and can win at the end of the game. But it's just, again, I think he is a threat more so than what he's realizing. It might have some trouble getting there. So for me, he did drop a bit, and he's here at number 6. Now, number 5 is someone that I hold in very high regard. I mean, spoiler alert for my winner ranking video. She is the top ranked winner of all time for me, and that is Kim Spradlin. And I think Kim is coming into this season with a massive target on her back. I think, again, another person that's probably coming in with more of a target than what she's realizing. And I was actually very surprised at how big of a target she's coming in with. Like, almost every person mentioned Kim as a threat or as like one of the best winners of all time. And I was actually very surprised by that. Again, Kim is someone that I think is well-renowned by the superfan community, but isn't really well-renowned by the casual community. So I was actually very surprised to see a lot of these winners, like a Parvati and a Michelle and even a Tony, these people who aren't like massive fans of the game, people that like follow every little thing. I was surprised to see them hold Kim in such high regard. But beyond that, you obviously have other people like Adam, Nick, Sophie, even Boston Rob was talking about Kim. These other people who also know, and even Jeremy, that know that Kim is as strong of a player as she is. I feel like that's a very bad sign for Kim. That being said, I don't think she's going to be taken out early. I would be very surprised if she is. I do think she is more than likely going to get to the merge. I just feel like once she gets to the merge, her target's going to be massive, and I don't know if she's going to be able to survive it. But that being said, Kim is, again, one of the best players to ever play the game. I do think she is someone that has the ability to overcome this threat level. And because of that, I do still have her at number 5. I am still feeling decent about Kim as a player. It's just how well is it going to work out on this season? I don't know. But again, definitely not feeling great about her after these interviews, but I do still think there's a chance that she can win the game. Now we're moving on to number 4 with someone that really shot up in my estimations after these interviews. Like, I mean, he was already ranked like kind of middle of the pack, but after these interviews, I just feel like no one is coming after him somehow, and that is Youll. I am very surprised by it. Again, I was expecting Youll to be one of the first few boots when I was doing my cast assessment video. I was not feeling good about Youll because he had no connections with anyone. I mean, he was someone that kind of fell off the face of the earth when it comes to Survivor, but was also someone that was looked at as a very big strategic threat, someone that was a massive gamer, and I feel like in retrospect, that's not going to be his perception. I mean, really almost no one was mentioning Youll. I think only like 1 or 2 people mentioned Youll, but even then they weren't talking about him like getting rid of him. Like they were just more so just like mentioning that he was a good player. And I feel like Yull's threat level coming into the season is much lower than I was expecting. And I am actually feeling good about Youll. I mean, Youll is someone that has the strategic mind for the game. I think he's someone that is naturally likable to most people. I do feel like he's someone that is now poised to do well without that threat level there. Now, with that being said, I don't think he wins the game. I do think if he gets to the end, I do think he can win the game. I do think he is someone that can easily get the respect to win a season like this. However, the way I see this season playing out, I think he's a mid-merge boot. I'm kind of looking at him as a like Stephen Fishback from Cambodia sort of run where, again, maybe he has a faulty start. We'll see. But I mean, either way, like I think he gets within the majority by the time the swap. Maybe pulls off a few big moves here and there, stays in the majority until until the merge. And then at that point, people start to realize the strategic threat that he is. He starts to get targeted and eventually gets taken out. That's kind of what I'm looking at Youll. I do think he's probably not going to make it towards the end of the game, but I would love to be wrong. I would love to see him as a 2-time winner of this show. Now, number 3 is actually the only 1-time player left on the board, and he's actually the most recent winner, and that is Nick Wilson. I feel like people are underestimating Nick. I mean, people really were down on Nick, I feel like, in the superfan community after David versus Goliath. I mean, a lot of it having to do with him probably being the most boring option to win that season, and also the end of his game not being super strong, where he essentially won out. But I do think Nick is a very underrated player. I do think Nick is so naturally good at the game. Again, he had his flaws in the premiere, David versus Goliath, but I do think after that he kind of adapted, and I think that from that point on until like the final, final 8 or so, he had one of the strongest runs in any Survivor season I've ever seen. While not blatantly out in front like a Boston Rob or a Kim, I do think he was able to pretty much dominate that section of the game from the background. And I feel like Nick is someone that could possibly do that again. I do think the biggest problem for Nick, obviously, is his lack of relationships. He is the newest winner. I feel like with that comes a lot of downsides. But I do feel like, he talked about this himself, that he is a free agent. And I feel like because of that, he could be picked up to be part of this like threat alliance or really just any grouping. I am feeling pretty good about Nick. I'll be very surprised if he goes out early in the game, and to be honest, I'm expecting a very deep run for Nick. Now again, does he win the game? I don't know. I don't know if he'll win this season. I at one point had him at number 1, and I decided to drop him down just because when I'm thinking of who's going to win this season, he wasn't really the first one to come to mind. He's not really someone that I'm thinking of as the 2-time winner of Survivor. But if you were to do that, I do think you gotta mark him down as one of the best players of all time, because I do think he has the natural skill there. And again, there was nothing in the interviews to really deter me from that. So again, for me, I feel a lot of confidence in Nick's game and Nick as a player. So for me, I have him ranked here at number 3. Now at number 2, I actually have my winner pick from my cast assessment video. And again, things have changed since then. And to be honest, I consider dropping this person even lower. But at number 2 here, I have Jeremy Collins. And I love Jeremy. Jeremy was my winner pick for both Sam Wandelser and Cambodia as well. And obviously, I picked him here again for Winners at War. In retrospect, would I change that? Yes, I would. This is the thing about Jeremy. I think Jeremy is so, again, naturally gifted at the game. I think he's someone that knows what to do, especially on an all-star season like this. I think he played Cambodia perfectly with his meat shield sort of strategy and keeping around people like a Savage and a Joe Anglam and a Stephen Fishback and all these people who were bigger threats than him in certain aspects of the game and keeping them around so that he doesn't become the biggest target. And he talked about doing this again this season. I feel like it's going to work out very well this season with people like Boston Rob and Kim Spradlin and Tony and all these people who are more threatening than him in certain aspects of the game. And I feel like because of that, he could make a very deep run. I don't think he's going to win the game, though. I think the more and more I've thought about this, I do think he has a big target on his back. He was mentioned a lot in these interviews, actually. Mind you, not as a target, but he was mentioned a lot. And I feel like the fact that he was mentioned so many times is not a great sign for him. I think that is, while not an immediate target, I do think it is a target for later on. And I do feel like come merge time, mid-merge, I do think he could be a massive target. Especially if he doesn't keep around the right people. I feel like he needs Boston Rob in the game for as long as possible. He needs Boston Rob. He needs Youll, Parvati, even Sandra. I mean, he needs all these people to be there with him for him to make a deep run. But I feel like if he loses them too early, I feel like he's going to be exposed and going to be taken out. Again, like I'm just not feeling as confident about him anymore. And I would love a Jeremy win. I think Jeremy, again, I think is one of the best players to ever play the game. I think he's someone that's very naturally gifted at the game. Nothing from his interviews really changed my mind on anything about him, but I just feel like my thought process on how this game is going to play out has changed a bit to not really favor Jeremy, and because that he's here at number 2 instead of number 1. And let's move on to it. At number 1, my number 1 ranked winner here on Winners at War, the most likely winner of the season for me right now is Tyson Apostle. I mean, I just feel like Tyson is so well positioned, and I actually made this decision like not even too long after I made that cast assessment video, maybe like a week or two. I realized that maybe I should have picked Tyson as my winner pick. I feel like Tyson is someone that is so well entrenched in the pregame alliances here. He's someone that has a lot of relationships coming into this season. He has Jeremy, he has Kim, he has Boston Rob, he has Sandra, even Parvati. I could see him building a bond of like Sophie and Tony, and like I just feel like he's so well positioned within this game from a pregame standpoint and also from a just natural game standpoint. I feel like even if like pre-gaming didn't exist, he would already have great relationships down the board. I mean, I could see him getting along with Ethan, Youll, Wendell. I mean, really just almost everyone. And I feel like he's just someone that's so, again, another one that's naturally good at the game. That obviously he had token chains where he didn't know anything about the game and still was in a very good position to get to the end of the game. It's just he was missing the strategic elements of the game. Like he didn't fully get the strategy of the game. And once he learned that strategy, I do think he was poised to have a really good run in Heroes vs. Villains. Again, he overplayed himself. He essentially voted himself out. But had he survived that vote, he was in a very strong position to run the table on that season. Where even in that season, he was keeping around Boston Rob as a meat shield to be taken out around the merge, and from that point on, he runs the table. And I feel like that is something that could happen this season as well. But then obviously we saw in Blood vs. Water, he was fully able to execute his plan and win pretty easily, and I do think that is something that could happen here as well. Biggest issue for him, for me though, is I feel like he might play too hard. I do think from the way he was talking in his pregame interview, where he was talking about how in the pregame he was building all these rumors about Boston Rob and Sandra and Tony and all these other people that they were in Parvati, that they were getting paid like $200,000 to come onto the season, all that sort of stuff. It's like, I feel like he's just playing too hard. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, I understand that it's obviously putting a target on these people, and that obviously it means that they're more likely to be taken out, but it's like Tyson shouldn't really been wanting that. I mean, if I were Tyson, I would want to keep those people around as long as possible and then cut them probably around the time of the merge. So, I mean, I am feeling good about Tyson. Obviously, like, as I said, I just feel like he's so well positioned within this game, and I think he would make a great 2-time winner of the show as well. However, there are some downsides. So even though he's number 1 here, there's no clear front runner. I mean, there is no person that's obviously going to win. I mean, we've had this in previous seasons where, like in Ghost Island, I instantly knew Wendell was going to win that season. In Cambodia, I had a very good feeling about Jeremy. I mean, in even 39, I know a lot of people were feeling good about Tommy. I mean, like, this is a season that doesn't have a clear front runner like that. I mean, there is no one that is very clearly going to dominate the game, and I feel like that makes the season super interesting. I'm really excited. I'm more excited for season 40 here than I've been for any season of any reality TV show, or possibly even any TV show ever. I mean, I'm super excited to see how this season plays out, even though, again, there are some issues. I mean, like Edge of Extinction, the introduction of fire tokens, all this stuff, which, I mean, I don't mind as a twist as a whole. It's just, I don't feel like it was needed for season 40. I mean, this stuff, like, I don't know, it could harm the season as a whole, and also with us only getting hour-long episodes when there was the rumor of 90-minute episodes. It's just, I feel like things could be better, but it's like, I mean, I'm still super excited for it. But yeah, those are my power rankings. That's every winner there. I am considering doing another one of these probably further down the road, probably like a mid-game sort of power ranking. I might do that. Don't hold me to that though. I'll obviously be doing a review of the season when the season ends. I mean, obviously Australian Survivor All-Stars is going to be going on at the same time, which is just insane. I'll be doing a review of that as well. I mean, obviously a lot of Survivor videos, a lot of just random videos coming in the future, as you would expect this channel. I do have a pretty big video planned for the 1-year anniversary of the channel, which is coming up on February, I think 15th. So stay tuned for that as well. That's the video. That's my Winners at War preseason power rankings. Thank you for watching.